This is Pod Populi.
Podcast for the people.
The Great Love Debate. It's the Great Love Debate.
The Great Love Debate. It's the Great Love Debate.
Hi again, everyone. It's Brian Howie. Welcome to the Great Love Debate, the world's #1 dating and relationship podcast since 2015. Quick note to kick it all off today. We just wrapped our 2021 tour schedule, which was our 8th season, which is really unbelievable considering we're supposed to do one show. We want to thank everyone who came out and had fun. We wrapped it a little bit earlier than normal this year for a lot of reasons, and we definitely appreciate all the terrific venues that booked our show during what has been a challenge for just about everyone, including us. But live entertainment is so important, and the fact that we were able to keep our tour going through 2020 and 2021 is a credit to a whole lot of people and a whole lot of you guys, and a whole lot of people who come to our shows and were so fun. And at the end of each show, podcast or otherwise, you hear me say, we never stop making love. Well, we're going to say that up front on this show, too. We never stop making love. We didn't last year. We didn't this year. Maybe we didn't do as many shows over the last, 18 months or so as normal. At some point back in the old days, 2015 and 2016, we were doing like 7 or 8 shows a week in different cities. So many that we just couldn't sustain that pace. But, quality over quantity. The shows we've done this year and last year are some of the best we've ever done everywhere. We've had great crowds. We've had really, really fun on-stage lineups. And you even got a rejuvenated me. I sort of got my second win doing these shows. I really had a good time doing them. So I'm not sure how many we will do next year or where. Maybe we'll make up some of the international shows that we lost. I'm not sure who will have us. I'm not sure the state of the world. But anyway, onward. So somebody came up to me after one of these aforementioned recent shows and said, I don't think you guys get into the love languages enough. And I said, maybe that's true. Although I think we touched on it a bunch back in the day. And every once in a while, somebody references it. And I personally believe there is some truth to them. And if you're not familiar with them, with the love languages, the concept stems from a premise, a theory, and a book. I think it's about a 20-year-old book now. It's by a guy named Gary Chapman, and he lays out the 5 primary love languages that we all have. He believes that the 5 love languages are quality time, physical touch, words of affirmation, gift giving, and acts of service. And my main issue with the love languages is that 85% of men have the same love language. And it's not physical touch, like a lot of women assume it is. It's actually words of affirmation. So I think that the concept of the 5 love languages and most of the discussions related to them, it fails to address that. And it makes it seem like it's 5 equal possibilities and you're spinning the wheel and you're going to be like, oh, what love language does he have or she have? Like there's 12 equal zodiac signs. There's sort of the equal percentage of all of them. And so if 85% of 50% of the population has the same love language, I think it's a little bit of a flawed premise. Although I agree that there's something to be gained by the act of recognizing that we aren't all the same when it comes to this stuff. So, ladies, he usually wants so much physical touch because he rarely gets the words. So you could make things so much easier on yourselves and go to bed a heck of a lot earlier if you just said, honey, you're amazing. Which brings me to what I want to get into today, which is a concept that I call unbalanced affection. In every relationship, whether it's a first date or a 50-year marriage, one of the two is usually a little or a lot faster, looser, more forthcoming with the compliments, the I love yous, the messages, the gestures, the affection, all of it. It's rarely an equal perfect match. I believe a perfect match is probably better, if it's on the side of a lot of that stuff. If you're erring on too much of that stuff, I think that's better than if nobody's saying that stuff. Nobody's saying I love you, welcome to my childhood. And you probably have been at some point in your dating life, you've probably been on both sides of it. And it's probably been a frustrating experience either way for you. I'm a huge fan of saying I love you or something of that ilk over and over, many times a day. I want the person I am with to know how I feel and what I feel and what they mean and that they're awesome, which is why I am with them. I am not a fan of what I call the Gesundheit I love you, which is I love you too. I don't want it. I don't need it. I don't say it. I want I love yous to be freestanding, on a whim, special, spontaneous, just out of the blue. I like that. So I don't think flowers on Valentine's Day have any relevance. I think flowers on August 2nd or April 19th, I think they have a lot more value. Anyway, but not everybody's exactly the same about how they express these things or when or the frequency. And that takes both some understanding and a lot of communication. Quote, well, obviously I love you, I'm with you, aren't I? That's both sufficient and reasonable, and it's also inadequate. The action should speak louder than the words, but for some reason, they just usually don't, and that's reasonable. So you have to understand the other person, and you have to understand what they're comfortable with and what their habits are and what they're used to, as well as what you like and need. Some people just assume you don't want to hear I love you 40 times a day. I don't understand those people. You can love bomb me to death. I love it. I have a whole childhood to make up for. I'm kidding, sort of. No, not really. I'm really not kidding. But sometimes people say it in absence of action or emotion or feeling. So it takes some understanding, and not taking some understanding of their love language, but it takes understanding their affection and how they express it. Sometimes just taking somebody's hand or holding their arm or looking at them a split second longer or sending a note or a text or an emoji or something, a gesture in a moment, that can mean everything. It can. But what if someone is just not like that? Can you love them? Do they love you? Obviously, yes, but it is certainly a little bit more of a challenge. You can't know how they feel, and you can never obviously assume it. And expressing what you need from them in terms of that communication and that symbol of affection, that can be tricky without seeming needy. And if you are needy, and I am extremely needy, I don't think there's something wrong with that, but you can't blame the other person if their needs are met a bit more easily and a bit more quietly. So you get into these rhythms of a relationship. Here's how we say good morning. Here's how we say good night. And there's 100 points in a day where you communicate something or nothing or everything, and it's about balancing something that's naturally unbalanced. It's never going to be exact. It's never going to be perfectly in sync. But I think you can get it aligned. And aligned, it doesn't necessarily have to be horizontal. If one is a 7 in terms of their affection and one is a 3, well, you can draw a line from 7 to 3 and it can be straight and it might be fine. It's also like, what is your affection calculus? Is it 3 I love yous equal 1 dozen roses? So these things, it's all a conversation about expression. Did they once say something meaningful and with purpose, either with you or prior to you, and it was not met with the reaction they wanted and they were expecting, and then they shut down? Did that make them more reserved in their gestures and their words? That's possible. It's all possible. So we're going to have to dive a bit more into what is possible and impossible on all of this. But we have to take a quick break because our sponsors make all of this possible. So we will be back right after this. And we are back. And while we were gone, I was thinking a dozen roses probably equals 5 I love yous. I think I'm going to print like the official I'm going to get an app. I'm going to build an app that is how, this means this. Is that the ratio? I need to write all of this up. I need to call me app people who always call me with this stuff. I need to do this. So I was raised Catholic, which is a whole other ball of stuff that I don't really want to get into, and not to bash Catholicism or traditions here. That's another show for another time. But you would go to confession and the priest would assign you 5 Hail Marys and 2 Our Fathers, and somehow that would absolve or balance out that you stole a skateboard from a sporting goods store. And I always thought that was just bizarre and arbitrary. And it was like a bit of abracadabra. Like, you did this, I'm going to make you do this, and boom. But the point of that, I believe, was that the ritual of saying the words, maybe, hopefully, you had to think about what you did. And in the same way, saying or typing or occasionally even writing, imagine that, writing, words that express and words that feel and words that connect, those go a long way. And I love you is probably about 15th on the list of things you can say as an expression of affection. I think, and I'm right on this, I miss you goes a heck of a long way. I'm thinking of you. Awesome. You're amazing. Who wouldn't want to hear that? Who would want to hear you're amazing? So if you're not comfortable saying certain things, or they are not comfortable hearing them, then you need to define your comfort zone and come up with ways to express what you think and feel and want to communicate in ways that are comfortable for you and hopefully meaningful for them. And if you are one of those 10 times a day I love you people, you have to be aware that the other person, it's not that they don't feel the same way, it's just that they may feel uncomfortable either saying it or receiving it. And how they reciprocate and or appreciate it, it just might not be the way you want or what you're hoping for, which, I think that sucks for them. It sucks a little bit for you. Is it a little icky? Yeah. Is it a deal breaker? It shouldn't be. Because it's not always about feeling, it's a little bit more about expressing. And we all have our blocks and our challenges when it comes to expression and communication. And this entire podcast exists because of that. So it's a good thing that we have these things because it gives me something to talk about. So how do you bridge that? How do you marry opposite emotional and conversational patterns? I think you have to figure out how someone feels, and you have to break it all down. Do they like you? Lots of people date you and even marry you and spend time with you, and they don't necessarily even like you. I think that gets overlooked. Are you sure you like each other? Have you ever been in a relationship where you love someone but you don't really like them? I mean, I think I have. It kind of sucks. It's a fucked up concept, but it's more common than you think. Then it's, how do they express how they feel about me? Do they post pictures of you guys on social media? If they do, are they doing so because that's about you? Is it about how they feel about you? Is it about them? Is it about other people? Does it really matter if they put in a relationship on their profile, but it's not really your thing and you're just more of a private person and they are not? Is that something that you should worry about? I don't know. I don't think so. I think these are conversations. And that's not something we ever had to deal with 10, 12, 15 years ago. Not only how you felt about each other, but how you wanted the world to know and feel about you. Back in the day, not too long before we started doing this show, you would announce your engagement and you would announce your marriage. And that was about it. You didn't even announce your divorce. You just quietly crept out of your marriage, and that was it. You announced your engagement, you announced your marriage. That's all kind of people knew about you in the big picture. Now you announce that you went to Bali or you shared fondue. Like, I'm not sure that ultimately matters, but if one is really out there with that stuff and the other is a little less so, I think the two of you, I think you have to negotiate, and I think you have to communicate why that is and what that means and how that affects you if it really affects